Hello and welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is a man that just ate a tray full of fried chicken livers. It's Johnny Numb.
Hey, I like organ meat, man. What can I say? It gets a bad rap, but true story. Maybe 10 years ago, I went to Thanksgiving at my best friend's house. His parents made like gizzards and livers, and that was the first time I had them, and only time I've had them. I was like, this is actually good stuff.
Yeah.
So don't listen to the people who talk about the organ meat being a lower form of cuisine. That's all I gotta say.
Cook it up, fry it, do it right, serve it. Delicious. No.
Baked gizzards, fried gizzards,
Bowl gizzards.
Gizzards in a pie.
Barbecue gizzards. Campfire gizzards.
Sriracha gizzards.
Honeydew gizzards. I don't know what that is, but
Gizzard trail mix.
So what you do is you cooking them up real good with some nuts, and then you slap them into the trail mix. Surprise.
I could see them being in the savory bag of Chex Mix. You know what I mean?
At Sprouts, it's just like at Whole Foods, chicken gizzard trail mix.
That would get me into Whole Foods.
Savory trail mix. That sounds like the worst thing ever to eat on a trail. It's like, hey, Mark, man, we've been hiking all night. Can you hand me the bag? Just, what is this? You know, I was expecting M&Ms and nuts and raisins. It's chicken gizzard savory trail mix.
How about dried chicken gizzards? Sort of like, and they're sort of like astronaut food.
Like dehydrated?
Yeah.
Like the strawberries that you get that are like dehydrated?
Yeah. It's like dried cranberries, like the dried pears, apricots, dried chicken gizzards.
Are we blending?
We can.
This is, you know what? I'm a maniac. Because, like, the one thing I like about trail mix, I feel like when you get a trail mix with, like, only 6 ingredients, you get kind of bored of them 6.
Yeah.
So you put a trail mix together with, like, 30 ingredients, and there's chicken gizzards in there. You're living on the edge. This is some Harry Potter jelly bean stuff right here. And I'm all about it.
There's this, going from trail mix to burritos, there's this great burrito shop locally here called Nito Burrito. And they make a cowboy crunch burrito, and it's just like all these different flavors together. I would like them to, instead of getting shredded Cajun chicken, I would like them to put chicken gizzards in the burrito. And every bite is like something different with that, which made me think of what you said about the 30 ingredient trail mix.
Oh, man, what's next in this burrito? This is neato.
I should send you a link to their website so you can take a look. You'd probably like them.
Yeah, let me get the chicken gizzard burrito, please.
What type of meat would you like? Would you like beef, shredded chicken, or chicken livers?
I want lizards all day, baby. Wait, livers all day, baby. Toss them in there.
That would be a tough burrito, though.
Give you something to do.
Yeah.
A lot of times I eat something delicious, Johnny, and it's like, where'd it go?
Mm-hmm.
But with these, you're chewing an hour later.
It would be savory. Go back to the savory.
We watch a lot of movies, Johnny Numb.
Too many.
And the movies we've talked about in the Feel Good series have given us many memorable visuals. But I would say when Robert Pattinson sticks his fingers into the chicken gizzard juice and then sucks on them, that's like, I felt so disgusted when Teagarden did that. I mean, when he's like, oh, hey, y'all. Like, oh, let me try. And then he just looks at him. Preston Teagarden looks at him, sticks his fingers in there, and then drinks the juice of the liver, chicken livers or gizzards or, you know, lizards, whatever you want to call it. And then he's like, yeah. And it's just, man, that guy emulates just sweat and grease and just everything foul that you could potentially think about.
No pun intended. Yeah.
No pun, brother. You know, I was listening to a interview with Robert Pattinson and what he liked. So he wore a fat suit for this movie, which is really interesting. But he said his accent. He goes, "There's some people who like to watch skateboarding for the skateboarding." He's like, and then there's other people who like to watch skateboarding for the massive wipeouts.
Yeah.
And he goes, that's what my accent is in this movie. It's like one or the other, and which makes me very happy. But like he compared himself to like Frank Booth, and he talked about his energy in this and that. Like he exerts so much energy, he just eats all those gizzards.
Wow.
And then he also loved that there's just nothing redeeming about him. Like there's no backstory really. He forgives himself very easily. At the end, he's like, if I pray, I'm fine. And then he just like there's no like redemption for him at all. He's like, hey, she's delusional. Like he talks about delusional a lot, which is probably how he gaslights people. I just thought that was really interesting and how he described his character. And he said he didn't really get to character until about the day before, and he would just record himself and make himself laugh with the accent. But he's just oh man, he's a slime ball, Johnny Numb.
Oh yeah, he is. And Mark, I hadn't seen this movie since it more or less came out on Netflix like 2 years ago, and I watched it yesterday, and I was like, when he started talking, I'd forgotten how high-pitched his voice is. It is not the Robert Pattinson of the Batman or pretty much in any of the other movies he's done. It's like he has this weird he's got this accent going on, like he's a bit flamboyant.
The nasal quality, right?
Yeah, definitely. So I thought it was like, but just looking at how he composes himself, and you're right, that perverse gesture of taking the juice from the chicken while everybody is just standing there terrified and hinging. It looks like everybody is hinging on what he's going to say because everybody is quiet. Everybody's very fearful, not saying anything because they want to impress this new pastor. Oh, it's so uncomfortable. Just so much discomfort in this movie.
And his poor wife, just sitting there looking broken. He's a special talent, Pattinson. I remember watching him in Rover, another interesting accent of his.
Oh yeah, that's a great movie.
And I was watching that, and recently we covered Tenet on the podcast, and we also we did the Batman commentary. So if you ever watch the Batman, you can listen to the commentary. But Pattinson, he really does have a wild range of characters. I mean, you go to Good Time, and then you go to this, and then you go to High Life. The dude, I really appreciate his range, and I love it. I think we've established that we love it. I love it when people swing.
Oh yeah.
And Patton swung big here. He I can't even do that nasal. Oh y'all. Hi y'all. No, I can't even do it. Can't even try it.
No, I think you're close there. You're closer than I was.
Well, see, we got these chicken gizzards here. No, I can't do it. I tried.
These poor people here. Some people. This is a high quality kind of meat, and we just gotta take a sample of this to show how appreciative. So I forget the nuts and bolts of that speech, but it is so condescending, patronizing, and wrong in so many ways. Yeah,
it's such a idiot, like a mean scuzzbucket thing to do.
Yeah,
it kind of makes me happy though. It's oh gosh, I love it. I love it so much. And this movie, you recommended this for our Feel Good series. I know you watched it in 2020. What made you want to revisit it and talk about it here?
Well, I'm a big fan of the director, Antonio Campos. He did, I think I've only seen two other of his movies, but I really like him a lot. It's Simon Killer, and he, before Ezra Miller became the troubled individual we know today, he did this movie called After School when he was really young, and it was both of those movies are very disturbing as well, sort of disturbing studies of disaffection and sociopathy, I'd say, and that carries over into this movie with a huge ensemble cast with a lot of mental and spiritual problems. And I just love the cast of this movie. I remembered it kind of hitting hard with me when I watched it. I made a point because I was like, oh, Antonio Campos, because I'm the director snob. I'm like, oh, he has a new movie coming out. I'm going to sit down with Netflix for the first time in 5 years and watch this movie because he did it. And I just remembered really liking it a lot. It left a big impression on me back in 2020. And I knew it was very dark and downbeat in a lot of ways, but without being nihilistic. I think there's a lot of meat, going back to chicken gizzards, in this movie, and I think some critics, just scanning over some blurbs from critics, I feel like some folks kind of miss the to me I feel like they kind of miss the boat on. It's like, oh well, it's not. It thinks it's being spiritual, or it thinks it has something to say. I mean, I think it does have a lot to say about faith, providence, morality, how people believe, is a huge part of this film, and it's downright disturbing what some people do in the name of God in this movie.
Yeah.
You know, these well-intentioned folks down in Knock 'em Stiff, you know, so.
Yeah, and that's a great point you made. And also, I was thinking about this today. So we've covered Bad Lieutenant, which has some big themes of Catholicism and religion. We've done First Reformed, which, I mean, First Reformed, Ethan Hawke, you know, we've cut a whole list of the house that Jack built. I mean, he goes through Dante's seven layers. Seven circles of hell. It's like a cake, Mark.
Yeah,
I want some 7-layer dip. We've been talking about all this stuff. The seven circles. And we've covered other movies too that have had like really tackled.
Only God Forgives.
Only God Forgives. And even there's a couple more. And I think I've enjoyed this. I had them written down somewhere, and I guess that whatever I wrote down didn't make it up with me. But I was like, I'm going to write this down and I'm going to remember it. Because listen, just go back through all of Movies, Films, and Flicks episodes and listen to our Feel Good series. I'll find them all and I'll put them on the podcast post. So if you go to Movies, Films, and Flicks, I'll have the list of all of them so you can check them out. But I really like this series because we've explored some really interesting themes, whether it's Ethan Hawke, whether it's Ryan Gosling, whether it's just some really interesting themes covered with like Christianity. And also I feel like three-dimensional. And there's a review for the book, The Devil All the Time, that made me laugh. And this person wrote, reads of as the love child of Flannery O'Connor and William Faulkner, was captured by Cormac McCarthy, kept in a cage out back, and forced to consume nothing but onion rings, Oxycontin, and Terrence Malick's Badlands. It's an absolutely amazing review because, listen, like, I love Cormac McCarthy. I love Flannery O'Connor. I mean, you have to, you know, Faulkner, you know, like Badlands. You got to like Malick. And this movie, the one biggest thing, it's like, I don't want to spend the entire episode harking on what critics said, but I read in so many different reviews that they're like, the characters only have one dimension. There's not anything to the characters. But I feel like if you watch Ocean's 11, if you watch so many ensemble pieces, the characters, you don't know their backstories. You don't know what makes them ticks. They're there looking cool. Like, you just, like, in this movie, and much like a lot of, I mean, this is Midwest Gothic. If you know Southern Gothic, you know, a good man is hard to find with the misfit. Yeah, I mean, the misfit does have problems with religion. He talks about like secular religion and, you know, his talks with the grandma. And I do love the line, she'd be a great person if like she didn't have a gun to her head. She had a gun to her head at all the time, like all the time. She'd be a great person. But you don't know too much about the misfit. Like, you just, these are characters inhabiting a very dangerous, crazy world. But then you have Arvin and Willard, who father-son, who are kind of the core of the movie. The rest of these people are sort of ideals, or like an odyssey, or they're people that sort of, you know, in the beginning they're like, did God bring everybody together in this? Because there's so many coincidences with everybody. But all these people don't need backstories, Johnny Gnome. They don't need that. Like, to me, they represent like evil, or a variation of evil, or what you can become if you go too far a certain way of evil. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah. Well, and I think some characters are just kind of, I don't want to say it this way, but it's like some of them are depicted as a bit simple, small town. It's like they're easily persuaded, like Arvin's, sort of, you call her, they may as well be brother and sister, but Lenora, you know, who kind of falls under Tiergarden's charming, corrupt spell in her own way. Mia Wasikowska's character, I believe Helen is her name. You know, it's like, I love, from the start, I kind of love how there's this play going on with it's just kind of like, you think the narrative's going to go a certain way, Arvin's going to get with Helen, or not Arvin, Willard's going to get with Helen, because that's who her mom, you know, wanted to set him up with. But he brushes her off she gets together with someone else that influences the course of her very sad fate. I just think it's interesting the way characters drift in and out of the narrative. You don't quite know who it's going to cut away to next, whose thread of the story. And I kind of like that unpredictable aspect of the film. And it's like you do wonder, something that's great about any movie is one that kind of keeps you guessing, because here there were a lot of reveals that don't happen until late in the film. It's like, oh, this person's related to this person and they're related this way, or something happened that we don't know about that's suddenly revealed. And it's like, not like a cheat. It's not a cheat like the last 30 seconds of a Saw film where you see all the stuff that they've been hiding from you the whole time.
What you didn't know.
Yeah. I'd like to play a game. It's called Cheat the Viewer Again. But I like the Saw films.
Yeah. Is this funny?
Yeah, I have to call them out sometimes.
Yeah.
But I kind of like just the to me, that's life, kind of, as characters or people drifting kind of in and out of your over the years. You maintain contact with certain people, you get close to them, you lose touch with some people when you move away. It's not usually not some intentional thing. It's usually just the way things sort of shake out.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the older I get, the more of an effort it is to keep in touch with people.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's this element of, I'm getting older, there's so much time. I'm sounding very fatalistic. I'm only 41, but just like the sense of, well, there's only so much time left in life, and I just want to be strategic with how I spend my time, who I want to spend it with, what I'm doing with it. But in any case, what I kind of liked about the film was the drifting in and out quality over the course of many years, with these characters intersecting kind of in these strange ways.
I love it. I mean, you live in these towns, you see sometimes you're driving by, you see somebody driving, you give them a wave, and you see them a month later somewhere else. Like, you drift in and out of each other's lives. And I really like that about it. And I also, just looking at the cast of this movie, if you haven't seen this film, I definitely recommend you go check it out. But they have Mia Wasikowska, but Robert Pattinson, Eliza Scanlon, who was just an old. She's been crushing it. Then you have Pokey Lafarge, wonderful musician, Jason Clarke, Harry Melling, who, I mean, he's so good now. I'm a big fan of his. You have Sebastian Stan, Riley Keough, who, I think pound for pound, Riley Keough does some of the funkiest movies on the planet. So I love it.
And she was in House That Jack Built.
Yeah, she was, with that wallet.
Oh my God.
Oh man, that scene. And I love her. Sebastian Stan's in this. They were in Logan Lucky together, which makes me happy. You have Haley Bennett, who's really good in this film. Bill Skarsgård, Tom Holland. And I think what I like most is watching this again. This is something I really thought was interesting, but the use of white in this film. When Charlotte Haley Bennett, who's wonderful in the movie called Cyrano, also Swallow, I think she's just a really excellent actor. Yeah. But when she meets Willard, Bill Skarsgård, who's absolutely broken, that opening shot when he's in Japan and he sees that man on the cross who was still alive, being eaten alive.
God, yeah.
Kills him. Yeah. I mean, this guy's never going to be alive. So, never going to be the same again. Willard is going to have to hide everything deep down into the soul. And so when he meets Charlotte, she's sort of effervescent. Or is that what happens when you put your dentures in something? Never mind. She's, I don't know my word, but she's bursting with friendliness, and she gives the homeless man some food. And when they talk, she's standing in front of a white wall. I think she sort of represents purity. And so when he goes back to the church, he's always thinking about her, and he's broken, right? He's damaged. In the 40s, PTSD, I wasn't alive in the 40s and I didn't have PTSD, but PTSD wasn't diagnosed. It was just kind of rub some dirt on it. Don't be a wimp. Hey, stop crying. Stop having nightmares. It was just, or you're going crazy. So I could see how he sought out Charlotte, and together they had Arvin, who Tom Holland's really good in this, because I don't think Tom Holland can play all bad. So I think his combination of having still that good soul, that kindness, but also that temper, So he kind of has Willard and Charlotte in him, and he's
Mm-hmm.
sort of, there's a couple different ways he could go. I really like that. And I thought the casting was good here too with Tom Holland. What did you think about that?
I absolutely agree, Mark. I've only seen him in one of the Spider-Man movies, and I guess Infinity War. So I haven't seen him in much, and I was thinking to myself, I actually got excited when I saw the trailer for this movie because I was like, it felt like they were trying to do sort of like, Robert Pattinson was known as the Twilight guy. Some people among us still call him the Twilight guy because they refuse to acknowledge he's done work outside of Twilight, which is their loss.
Yeah.
But I was thinking the same thing from Tom Holland. It's like, oh, here's Spider-Man, PG-13 Marvel Spider-Man, and they're going to bring him into this dark Southern Gothic. I am like so there because I think he's going to do a Pattinson and he's going to blow everybody's socks off, which honestly, I was like floored by his performance. I think he's fantastic in the movie. Yeah.
He put a lot of work into his accent. In the Spider-Man movies, he's so full of life.
Yeah.
But in this one, he slowed down his southern drawl a little bit. He slowed it down. He had a good physical presence to him. It didn't really feel like, sometimes it feels like the bad, sometimes that the kid actors, they intentionally go way too bad in movies, and you're like, oh man, but this was a good combination because he's still a good kid. He's just fighting with these demons from, his dad's side. I mean, this is a kid who saw his dog get slaughtered, his mom die, and his dad commit suicide.
Yeah.
This is a kid who, his aunt and uncle are doing the best they can raising him, but he's still got that anger, and it's not going to go anywhere. And it's really interesting throughout the film. I don't know if you noticed, but in the beginning he has a really nice crisp white shirt. And when his dad commits suicide, he eats a cherry pie, which stains his shirt red. Like, it's red and white. They think it's blood. So that's like a stain on his shirt at that scene. And so he starts off in really nice white shirts. And then when you cut to him later on, when he's a little older, he has some white shirts that are clean, but kind of a little brown mixed in there than white. But as the movie goes on, that white shirt gets dirtier and dirtier and dirtier. He's only one of the few characters in the entire movie who does wear a fully white shirt. The only other times are, if you look at Robert Pattinson, there's always like a light blue. If you look at Jason Clarke, he wears a white tank top, but it's soiled. And I noticed like the colors of the wardrobe in this film where, like Preston Teagarden, he has a white shirt but with frills on it at the end. Yes, and then if you look at during their altercation in the church, Holland has a lot of shadows on him, darkly dressed, and then Pattinson's more drenched in light. So it's a really interesting way that they play with the colors and costuming. But I noticed as the movie goes on, he's kind of looking more like Carl, Jason Clarke's character. He's dirtier. He has a white shirt, but it's soiled. I mean, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I also, I know a lot about costuming, and so I was watching this and I'm just thinking, like Roy never has that fully white shirt. Pattinson never has it when he's preaching. There's always a little bit of a color. Stanley has his white shirt when he discovers that his sister's dead. Like, there's some really interesting choices they make with wardrobe here. And I sort of noticed that with Holland's character, and just watching him, it's kind of heartbreaking because that temper's there. He's protecting his sister, but he has this, it's one of those classic movies where there's the good kid, but then there's evil and good on both sides. But I feel like in this movie, it's just evil. It's a classic Gothic, Southern Gothic, Midwest Gothic tale, right? Where he has a great aunt and uncle, but the forces that come into his life sort of take him further into, having the devil all the time, battling the devil all the time. So I thought that was kind of an interesting way to treat his character where, there wasn't any De Niro from A Bronx Tale fighting Chaz Palminteri for like the soul of a kid. It just felt like all these things just kept coming in front of him. But I thought that was an interesting storytelling technique that they had in here. And I enjoyed watching the story through costuming, as one would say.
Yeah, that's a really interesting observation, Mark. I wasn't picking up on that motif at all with Tom Holland's character. So I kind of like that. Yeah, it's like the purity giving way to the dirt, kind of, and it's like, can you overcome that the Willard tendencies in you, or can you rein it in enough not to go too far, and then what is too far, with what you feel like you have to do.
I mean, man, but I mean, this is another interesting question because you're like, what do you have to do? But you look at Reverend Preston Teagarden, who just exudes everything unhealthy in this world.
Yeah.
And then you look at Arvin, like, you can't say Arvin made the right choice by murdering a man, but I think Preston Teagarden is nothing but a destructive force. He is nothing but that. He's nothing but a destructive force. So it's like, super pure people like his sister, who only wears a lot of white, by the way, because she's an innocent. I noticed that about her costume. The other people don't. Now, listen, I know in Die Hard he has a white tank top that gets dirty, and I know in Con Air, it's like, I know tank tops get dirty throughout a film chases, but I'm telling y'all, watch it, you will see the colors. But yeah, I just think he's such a destructive force, and so when he kills Teagarden, it's weird, this movie, because you're like, yeah, of course. Like, it's such like it's a moral choice that he chooses. But, I mean, this guy, he would have gotten caught eventually, but I guess just the way he was raised, what happened to, no justice for his sister, let's call her, and he goes and makes that choice, and it feels, I don't know, it doesn't feel wrong.
I think the thing you might be getting at, Mark, is something that I was thinking about while I was watching this movie, is how it's not get up and cheer when the violence happens.
Never.
It is ugly. It is uncomfortable. There are scenes that sent chills down my spine, and I consider myself pretty jaded with how they were rendered. When Willard beats up the two poachers at the beginning of the film, it's absolutely brutal. And Arvin is watching from the truck with the dog as his dad literally rubs a guy's face in the mud trying to kill him. And then later on, Arvin does like the same thing to some people who are bullying Lenora. And it's like these three guys. And I noticed, maybe it was Antonio Campos making a little comment of rubbing your face in it, but then Arvin rubs a Twinkie in this guy's face after he's punched him a couple of times. And it's just very brutal. It's very ugly violence. Yeah, it's definitely not it's not like the sensationalized stuff that you see in some movies where it's like, oh, that bad guy got his, it's really like it really ties in with kind of the muddy morality film. I think it's like, part of me is like, yeah, I'm glad he beat up those guys that were bullying his sister or bullying his wife or whatever, but then it's like, yeah, it's still kind of ugly, it's kind of primal, and I think that kind of detracts from it coming across as too glamorized, maybe.
And that's a great point, because I don't think I ever sat there and cheered through any of the violence, because it's all ugly and it always goes too far. I mean, listen, movies have led many people to believe that when a fist hits a face, there's a pow sound. And 3 seconds later, they're like, oh, cool. Like, those are when someone gets shot, there's no blood. They just fly up in the air and do a flip and it's done. In this one, you see the people cry. You hear about the people crying. You feel, he shows you it. Like, when Wachikowska Mia gets stabbed in the neck, he just pulls out and there's just a long scene of her bleeding out. It's ugly. And then what's kind of crazy is they try to play it for laughs because her idiot husband Roy is like, now wake up. Like, I've been summoned from God. That spider bite that made my head the size of a watermelon. I don't think it's funny, but it's I mean, I guess like most Southern Gothic books, which do lean into very dark humor. And even, I mean, Faulkner does too. I mean, look at Cormac McCarthy's dark humor.
Oh,
I mean, gosh. Yeah. So it's ugly and it's bleak and it's dark. And when Holland does get his revenge, you're not cheering because it is ugly. And I respect that about this movie. And much like we talked about with Bad Lieutenant, this is a movie where I was a little worried about this movie because the cinematography is very good. And I'm a big fan of the cinematographer. Let me pull up the name, because the cinematographer also shot the OA.
Oh, okay.
Which I'm a huge fan of on Netflix. They canceled it, but it's 2 seasons and you should watch it. Absolutely. But it's Lowell Crowley. the name of the cinematographer. And this guy also shot 45 Years, Vox Lux, Black Mirror, the OA. I was a little worried at first though, because it looked like a very HD Southern Gothic movie. But I mean, then I started thinking about it. I mean, everything's not going to look like Bad Lieutenant. That movie looks like it was filmed on wax paper in someone's apartment in New York. So,
right.
This movie, but once I got into the vibes of it, once I got into the themes, once I started thinking about kind of the overall theme of it, I really was into it. But there's really never any fancy camera tricks too. Like the way that the violence is filmed, it's like a static shot or just watching someone or holding the camera a little bit too long. There's just not like that long shot where Sebastian Stan kills the bodyguard with the gun, who's really nice, and he asks about how do you distribute coffee. He's like, what are the scoops? Like, is it this? Is it that? Like, how do I do this? And I started thinking about that too. You know, I did coffee at our house for years, and then Megan kind of took over it for some reason or another. So now when I make coffee, I'm like, whoa! I'm like Kevin James from the King of Queens. But yeah, it's a wide shot that shows the violence. Like, it's not, I don't know. I appreciated that about it. The violence should never have been stylized, and it wasn't here, and I dug it. So that's what kind of made me happy.
Well, I think something interesting, Mark, is the scene at the very beginning, and it's the first first shock moment in the movie is where Willard and the couple guys from his platoon discover that crucified soldier, and they don't really show anything. They kind of find ways to kind of obscure what we're seeing, because it's like we're behind Willard looking at the guy on the cross. It's kind of a clever little it's like we're following behind, like we kind of are dreading looking over his shoulder, but we kind of want to see what the horrible thing is all the same. And it's just it's just awful. And I like the stylistic thing Campos does when Lee, Sebastian Stan's character, who only seems to give a damn about staying elected sheriff in this town. Never mind that Sandy, his sister, is a
serial killer.
Yeah, she's a serial killer, and people are talking like she's a prostitute as well because of stuff they're hearing. But when he discovers the dark room in the apartment, and it's just like this montage of the photo negatives of her.
Oh, man.
And the victims. So you have this, what they're doing, taking these lonely male hitchhikers out into the forest, seducing them, getting them drunk, and then killing them, is made even more disturbing because it's this inverted black and white imagery that Campos just kind of scans through these atrocities. So you're not entirely. It takes a couple seconds to try and like orient yourself to what you're seeing. And by the time you think you know what you're seeing, he's cutting to something. He's cutting to another image or another negative during that sequence. So,
man, those two are just horrible.
Yeah,
they are. Oh, Sandy and Carl have killed dozens of people.
Yeah, I think, what did it say? It was no, it wasn't 14 people, was it?
Because they said road trips, right? Did they do something? Like, they did say 14 something. But I feel like
I need to check.
Yeah,
I think might have been more than that.
Because I have a note. I remember you saying that, but because I looked out through all those pictures and I'm like, because I thought they went on 14 road trips, and then on those road trips they kill people. But that could be either way. They've killed at least 10 people, and it's brutal. And I mean, Riley Keough's a straight up serial killer. Like they're serial killers. But I guess she just gets tired of them crying, which is one of the. There's some lines in this movie that really did stick with me. She's like, I just get tired of them crying. Like, so I guess if they're not crying, you're fine. Like, is it like what's going on here, Sandy? Man, when Sandy gets shot in the neck.
Oh yeah, these Providence moments that Tom Holland experiences like within the course of a day in this movie. It's like these kind of lucky moments. The phantom bullets, that aren't there or just narrowly miss him,
And then taking out Stan. Oh, that's later on. But you know what's interesting, Johnny? He senses them pretty early, and it's good acting on Tom Holland's part because he never says a word, but he's just watching the two of them, and he almost immediately knows something's up. That these two are very squirrely human beings, I thought that was an interesting scene. That's probably one of my favorite in the movies. That's my favorite moment of Holland because it showed that he can, he's not angry punching people, shoving bloody Twinkies in people's faces. He's not kind of engaging in a monologue. This is him just on his face, realizing, oh man, these two are weirdos. I need to do something here. I don't know. That's probably my favorite moment of his actually in the scene. I don't know if you like that.
Yeah, I was taking notes on that sequence. I actually paused it for a minute so I could gather it together. But I love the editing in that scene, which also plays into Holland's performance, I think, because he's just kind of reacting. He's not really talking. When they stop in the clearing next to the stream, he sees Carl get out. He sees the gun in the butt of his pants. So he notices that first. He knows something's up. So it's these series of cuts but back and forth between him, Carl, and Sandy, with Sandy like trying to light the cigarette and everything like that. There's just this real subtle tension that's going on because I'd forgotten how this whole sequence panned out since, it had been a couple years since I watched it. So I was like, yeah, how does he get out of this? Because I know he gets out of it, but I'm like, how? And how does he get these two? But yeah, it's a fantastic just bit of subtle physical acting because it's mostly him kind of with his face, kind of you can see the sweat on his brow, his eyes, his hair is a little messed up. You can tell he's been through a lot already that day, and he's like, oh shit, now I'm in deep with something else here, and it's like, what am I gonna do? So yeah,
just force him close, and then, close to the dark side, I guess. And Sandy and Carl, they've been at it for as long as he's been alive.
Yeah,
they met when Willard met Charlotte.
Yes, at the diner. Yeah.
And then they killed good old Roy, who was the dad of Lenora. Like some people are like, oh, some say it's dumb luck, others say it's it's a little bit of both or like God's will, but there's a lot of coincidences that come together here. But I like it though. Like I like that sort of narrative that these people are tied together, that actions were happening that bring them together. That works for me. I don't know, and it seemed like this movie there was a lot of things in this movie that took people out. Some people said they were laughing hysterically at it, and maybe I just don't watch movies ironically anymore. Maybe they don't look to make fun of accents, but I don't know what there is in this movie to take you out of it or make you think it's hilarious. Are there any? I know it's a completely different question, but I kind of want to talk about it with you.
Well, Mark, I was thinking as I was watching this, we did Killer Joe, which is a dark as black coffee, week-old black coffee comedy, which nonetheless has a ton of disturbing stuff in it, stuff you've never seen and you will never see again, I'm sure, in a movie. But with this one, I was just like, this one took me on a totally different emotional journey than Killer Joe. I was just like, I was kind of chilled by a lot of the performances because maybe going back to First Reformed, maybe going back to films that kind of tackle the nature of belief, it's not just a bunch of stupid people saying, God do this, it's smarter than that. You're dealing with some depressed, poor people who have seen a lot, but at the same time, it's like you were talking about Roy. Roy is penitent before Carl when Carl's getting ready to shoot him. And that's how I'm like, well, Roy might have been turned nuts by the spider bite, but he's lucid enough in that moment to be like, I'm so sorry. He was like, I did this to my wife. He's heartbroken because he genuinely believed that he had this vision that God would come and bring Helen back, which doesn't happen. So I think had the performances been pitched, maybe a note or two higher, it would have come off wrong. It would have come off maybe as unintentionally funny. Or if some director wanted to or if the Coen brothers had done this, they probably would have managed to turn it more into actually, no. that I could see them handling this material like they handled No Country
Yeah, No
for Old
Country for Old Men. Yeah.
which was very nuanced, and that had some humor in it, but it was mostly a very serious, downbeat movie.
Hmm.
So yeah, a lot of this film shook me because when films kind of go into kind of the nature of belief, that's interesting to me. It's these people aren't just paying God lip service. Tiergarten is because he wants to use God to get his way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I felt like Willard was pure despite the horrible things he did. I felt Roy had a purity to him despite the horrible things he did. It's very it's very complicated.
Yeah.
Faith is a very complicated thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't take it easy, and it represents a bunch of different kinds of Christianity.
Yes.
First Reformed, like Bad Lieutenant. I think they show you in all forms that there's many different ways, like many different types of people who believe, or what they believe, or how they believe. And you're right, Roy is like, I don't know how his brother. He said his brother drank antifreeze, so like I wonder if he did that to him. But Roy, I mean, he got bitten the spider bite. He is a murderer, but he went crazy enough to think that delusional enough to think there's a GIF where the LU in the middle are capitalized, and that makes me so happy.
Perfect.
But yeah, I mean, when she gets stabbed, he thinks she's coming back, and so he has gone delusional. He's lost his mind. But there's an anguish, and at the end when he dies, I feel like he's like, I'm not going to do this with your wife. I did this wrong. I'm not condoning any of it. Like, I'm not condoning this. I'm just saying this is a man who he sort of seemed like a very dangerous still type of pastor, type of Christian who self-harm and delusions and like, I am God. Like, this is a guy who thought that God told him he could resurrect people. So there is a hubris there to this guy.
Right.
But a spider also bit him and his head turned into the size of a watermelon. So he's gone. His brain is gone. And then you have Willard, who, I mean, after you see that war, after you have to shoot somebody who's been eaten alive by flies and skinned on a crucifix, you're not going to have that relationship. And I think between the PTSD, his wife dying, I think he just went insane. Like, he killed the dog, he killed himself. I think he just had other issues, and then combine that with the like a ill-fated belief, and that killed him. And then you have Preston Tiergarten, who is a very dangerous televangelist, who uses the power to gain money, a nice car, notoriety, women. So you do have these three different types of religious people. I mean, but you also get Aunt Emma, who's chill and raised them. They weren't even her kids. And so she raises them. So it's not saying like Haley, Charlotte wasn't bad either. So you have kind of most of them are women who are actually good people. But actually, Uncle Earskell, he was a good guy. But then I just think they showed these many different types of and then Lenora has the very naive type of belief, which puts her in the crosshairs. So I just think it's interesting, like exactly like you said, but a much long-winded way, that this movie does show the different types of dangerous. Like, it's interesting. It's not saying like religion is evil. It's just saying, it's saying maybe the organized religion, or the way people interpret religion, or the way a religion can give people power, or the way people can give them hope or delusions. It's an interesting way to tackle it, and I did appreciate that. But and also too, it does have some very dark nihilistic views on religion, but it also shows some really nice acts of kindness too, with the mom giving the homeless man money in front of the white painting. You have the neighbor who was really good to the kid, to Arvin when his dad died. Like, it's
the gas station attendant.
Yeah, the gas station attendant. The hitchhiker at the end, who I think is probably just a good dude. You have these nice moments of kindness that almost have nothing to do with religion, but they're just little moments of kindness too. So you have all this depravity, but then you have a few really nice moments, and then you kind of have, but it's also Southern Gothic, dude. So like Baptist church, like hellfire brimstone. Like, I know this is Ohio. I'm not gonna say Ohio Southern. Like Midwest Gothic. Like, there's always a Gothic always has something to do with religion, man. I don't know, but everything ends bad too. But I mean, even a good man is hard to find. You know, that's one of my favorite short stories of all time. When I was teaching AP English, I made my kids read it. And, you know, that tackles religion as well. So, I don't know. I'm happy I'm happy this did it. I'm happy that it feels quite three-dimensional. I like Pattinson's accent. Who cares, man? Like, I don't even know that. I don't even know where he's from this accent, but who cares? Like, to me, he represents more of a force of evil rather than an actual human. So I don't mind that accent, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I think what's interesting about him is the charm. So he's got the look, you know. Robert Pattinson is just, he's handsome even with a fat suit. I would have had no idea he was wearing a fat suit in that movie. But just, you look at him and he's like, oh my God. I'm not a Twilight fangirl, but I'm like, oh, he's so dreamy, man. He's just, you know, I could see how Lenora could, you know, fall in, or the other girl who falls in with him, you know, gets seduced by that. There's that power, and there's that belief that, okay, maybe God is talking through him. He speaks so passionately, so not proudly, but so loudly, you know, about faith and God and fire and brimstone. And he certainly scared off, you know, Arvin's aunt that day at the, you know, with the finger food and the gizzards. But you know, this is why, you know, I like this movie a lot for how it depicts religion, because, like you said, it's a variety of different types of belief, and it's about how people believe. It's not positing a definitive belief, or First Reform too. It's more like you know, it's a movie I bought my dad, who was a UCC minister, and I was like, you have to watch this movie because I think you'd get a lot out of it just because of the way it handles it. It's a very meditative film. And that's something you don't see. You usually see religion presented so outrageously and cartoonishly in movies, and usually people who are religious are there, you know, to be mocked or made to look like fools. You don't always see it presented in a very you know, sincere, though possibly misguided despite best intentions kind of way, like you see in The Devil All the Time. And I think that's kind of what makes it interesting, is that I wasn't sitting back saying to myself, Lenora, why are you being so stupid? That guy's a scumbag. Get away from him. Get far, far away, because this isn't going to end well. You know, but I didn't think that at all, because I could see, and, you know, Campos in Scanlon made us believe, I think, that how she would get in with Tiergarten and his corruption and not know any better, you know.
Absolutely. No, I pretty much love it. I love it. Scanlon does a great job too, just believing in that. And you know what's interesting? There's a couple moments where you almost feel like she's calling him out on his BS. So what you're saying is me in my birthday suit. Like, she knows what this, but then this guy has this power. Oh man, but you know, Campos, he also produced Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene with the cult, and, you know, the cult leader, and the John Hawkes, I believe, as the very kind of bonkers cult leader. Then you have like, he also worked on The Sinner, which, you know, he seems to really like tackling these sort of kind of downfalls of people. It's quite interesting. I like that side of stuff though, because that's what needs to be tackled. That's what I think needs to be tackled, because sometimes you have these Kevin Sorbo faith-based films, or then you have you know, the total, and listen, stereotypes are based on something. So, but then you get the super like idiot, overzealous, the Mist characters, which probably would exist in the real world. I mean, Marcia Gay Harden probably does exist in a world. But it's kind of nice watching this movie and how people deal with it, and no, it's good. And you know what's interesting? Like, watching this, I didn't feel like I was wallowing in the muck of anything. Sometimes I watch movies and I feel dirty. This movie never made me feel like that. I guess I don't know. I never got that vibe from it. I just sort of enjoyed the ride, I guess. And I loved hearing Sebastian Stan being called a human or loaded diaper, which is one of my favorite insults ever now, probably.
Mark, I just gotta say, as an aside, I love that we have Tom Holland and Sebastian Stan from all those Marvel movies, and I wouldn't be surprised if, hey, I'm sure they'll be able to live off those movies long after they've decided to stop doing the acting thing, and long after Marvel has kind of run its course, which looks like it'll never happen at this point. But I was just like, they're probably thinking to themselves, yeah, these Marvel movies pay for my nice expensive house in Hollywood, but this is like the type of stuff, this is the type of role I could sink my teeth into. This can be me saying, all right, you liked me as Bucky, you liked me as Peter Parker / Spider-Man. Let me show you what else I can do. And I mean, sort of like Robert Pattinson taking on those, more edgier indie roles like post Twilight. I'm sure he alienated a lot of his Twilight fan base, but at the same time, it's like, for people like me who, I didn't have a horse race or really in the Marvel race, it's like, man, these guys are good.
Yeah.
They have range, and that's kind of what I like to see is like Tom Holland's not just Peter Parker. He can play this complicated, rugged, rough around the edges and conflicted character, and Sebastian Stan does the same thing. It's tough, and they really maintain this sense of balance in their performances. Everybody does. There's this it really feels like everybody's walking a tightrope in this movie, and it works beautifully, I think. Yeah.
I think a great way of knowing you got to turn it up is when you see Robert Pattinson on screen doing that performance, or when you're on screen with Riley Keough, who can just probably snap into weird. And I mean, she did what, American Honey? She did The Lodge.
Oh yeah.
Logan Lucky, she's hilarious. Mad Max Fury Road. There's so much range to her. So it was kind of, everyone's on it. Like Eliza.
Yeah.
So, you're Tom Holland. So I'm happy I watched this movie. I really am, because I watched that movie Cherry. I remember I wrote kind of a nice review about it when I watched it, but the more I think about it, the more I can't stand it, because it shows like drug use and abuse in a very like glossy HD way. And I didn't think he was very good in it, because I don't think they didn't want him going full Jared Leto Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah.
But then, so it felt like a very missed opportunity. And I watched him in Uncharted. And while I'll watch any movie with treasure hunts because I'll just do it, and I enjoyed it. Mark Wahlberg's great. But even, I was watching it, I'm like, what's going on with Holland here? And he later on said that during the entire movie, he puffed up on every scene. And so when I'm watching, I'm like, why is he looking like, what is he doing? Like, I was like, he's fun. He has good quips with Mark Wahlberg. I'm like, he's like doing something weird. But he said the entire movie he's holding out like Puff, trying to look cool. And then he's like, I will never do that again. So I was a little worried. So as soon as this movie came on, and then as soon as I watched him, I'm like, okay, he's good. Like, he's not just, I mean, he's amazing as Spider-Man. I'll give him that. I liked him in The Impossible, but watching this, I was like, okay, Tommy H just got it. He can do it. Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, and I was gonna say, sorry to jump in, but with Sebastian Stan, I mean, between Fresh, when he was in Destroyer, he's in I'm Not Here, I, Tonya, Logan Lucky, he's in The Martian, The Bronze. I don't know if you've seen The Bronze. Oh my gosh. Yeah,
with Melissa Rauch.
Yeah.
The comedy? Okay, yeah.
Have you seen The Bronze?
Oh, a while ago, yeah.
That's it's a gnarly little movie, man. It's very raunchy, but
it is something. Yeah.
It's crazy. And so I always like seeing Sebastian Stan away from Marvel. Whenever he's away from Marvel. And he was Blaine in Hot Tub Time Machine. He was really funny in that. But yeah.
Wait a second. He was also he had like a small part in Rachel Getting Married, I think, years ago. Yeah.
And he's the villain in The Covenant, which we covered on Deep Blue Sea, the podcast. But yeah, I mean, the dude's got range. And I think with Bucky, it was just such a sour character. So then whenever I saw him in Logan Lucky, I'm like, yes. I like kind of see him in a way. So I liked watching Holland. But I also think Campos, he worked on this with his brother. His wife edited the movie. His son was in the movie. His son was baby Arvin.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But I think he's really good with actors, because he also did the Rebecca Hall movie that she got tons of award buzz for.
Christine.
Yeah, I would love to see her it will never happen, but I wish she'd get a nomination for Resurrection. I was listening to the Out Now with Aaron and Abe podcast, and they were just talking about her performance and how physical it is and how committed it is. And it's like, it's one of those movies that if people watch it, they're like, oh, okay, got it. Like she should be there, but no one's gonna watch it. So, but no, it's
I want to see that one. Yeah.
It's not as crazy as everyone says, but it's worth watching for her. Like there's like an 8-minute monologue that made me laugh, but also kind of horrified me at the same time. But it's not like one of those monologues where it's like, I'm doing a monologue. So I didn't even know she did an 8-minute monologue until I read about it later. That's how good the monologue is.
Wow.
Because some monologues you're like, man, this is a monologue. I think it's a great monologue when you don't go, that was a great monologue.
Mark, next one of your tournaments needs to be monologue squads. Now you were asking for ideas. Now it's like establish the parameters for a monologue and pick 5 movies.
Movies that feature monologues.
Not now. Let's do it as a as a tournament.
Yeah, let's do it. We'll get like 16 teams and we'll do the monologue squad. Oh man, because I didn't even know. That's when you know it's good. Sometimes when you watch a show, you're like, oh, another monologue. And also Fresh too. I really like Fresh this year. There's some. I don't know. Have you seen Fresh yet?
I still have to see it. It's on my list. Yeah.
Got it. Well, I guess you guys. I don't know. I wonder if it'll come up the end of the year list with y'all. But yeah, it's I just had a good time watching this. I'm glad you recommended it because it's kind of crazy. Like this came out and I was excited for it, but I just had a crazy 2020, 2021 and I just missed it. So I'm glad I got to go back and revisit it. And so it's quite a long movie, but it never felt long to me. I really just embraced it and enjoyed it. It was good.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Mark. That was another thing. It's just the pacing is so good with this, and it's just. I was sitting there, so I was like thinking, oh man, this thing is like over 2.25 hours long. And me pausing to take notes is gonna make it even longer. But I didn't have to stop it too often. I was keeping up with it. I was taking my notes, and I was like, this thing is just so good, and it just keeps moving and moving, and it's sort of like Jenga. It's like characters get taken out like Jenga pieces till sort of like the thing's either gonna fall or is it gonna stay standing for a little bit longer, enough for Tom Holland to get out of it with his skin intact. Yeah.
Good movie.
Yeah.
I'm glad. And also too, one last thing for everyone who's saying that this movie doesn't have like the characters have no backstory, there's no personality to them. Like watch Ocean's 11, watch every single ensemble piece. Like it's and this isn't the type where it's 11 people in the room chatting. Like this isn't shortcuts. This is people in and out of each other's lives. So I just had to get off my chest. All those like this saying, oh, the movie, like that. I don't think they were supposed to represent that. I don't know. Maybe I've just read Southern Gothic before and I know what these characters represent and why they're in this. And this is Arvin's story. This isn't Riley Keough's story. And if it was, I don't know if I could watch it because she loves to smack gum on screen. I can't stand gum smacking on screen. So
I can't take it in real life either.
Yeah. Oh no, I think I have misophonia because I don't just go ugh, like I react. Now someone's gonna use this against me. Like so, never tell people. Actually, I love it. I love gum smacking, guys. Don't use it against me.
I can't even chew the stuff, but not since I was a kid. So yeah.
I'm more of a Mentos guy.
Mentos are good. Yeah. I like the generic flavors from the grocery store. Yeah. They taste just like regular. They just taste like regular wintergreen lifesavers.
Ooh.
With the little green sparkles in the center.
Oh my goodness. What are these?
I used to eat those like candy. Yeah.
I like the candy cane Mentos. So you buy them during Christmas, but you don't want to eat them all at once. So you spread them out during the year because they're apocalypse food. And so, but like that way you're kind of like, well, I only have a couple left, so I'll just let them hang out. Like so I try to stretch out my candy. This is life in the Hoffmeyer house. I try to make them stretch out. Someone's like, man, Hoffmeyer just lost all the mystique for me. But yeah, that's how I do it.
Be honest, Mark. You have a basement with your Hugh Jackman survival compound, and it's just filled with Mentos candy canes for the apocalypse.
Paul Verhoeven movies and candy cane Mentos.
You have a couple backup like Blu-ray players, a bunch of copies of RoboCop, and a couple TVs in case they break. Then wait out the apocalypse with some candy canes
and a couple bicycles that I can pedal. and then build electricity to watch RoboCop.
Exactly. Yeah.
This man has been down here for 20 years watching RoboCop. Like, how you doing? I'm great.
I can only imagine how your beard would be. You'd have a real Methuselah beard once you came up. Yeah.
I want people to find me 20 years later, and I'm just like in the best shape of my life, watching RoboCop, like totally healthy, totally lucid. I was like, hey, Al, what's going on up here? I bet it was crazy. How's the fallout?
And it's like you just like go back down and keep watching RoboCop, keep sucking on candy canes.
Oh man, so I have to be a cannibal now? Oh.
Yeah.
All right, well, hey, I'll be right back. And then I run downstairs, lock everything, Jodie Foster panic room it. And they're like, oh, we can't get to him. It's too sophisticated.
Yeah.
My own RoboCop comes out.
Zombie Jared Leto shows up with his cornrows, Yeah.
Dwight Yoakam and Forrest Whitaker.
What the F is that? They weren't even supposed to be here.
Is that zombie Jared Leto outside? I have like a telescope and I'm just watching.
Make me make Morbius jokes even though I haven't seen it.
I have catapults that just like can shoot people around the property.
You have a trebuchet to launch Jared Leto.
Is that Jared Leto zombie flying by me?
With his cornrows?
Yeah. Wait, is that Panic Room era Jared Leto?
It's the apocalypse and time has gone back like 20 years in the process.
So it's 2042. Jared Leto still look like Jared Leto does now. And someone still makes a Panic Room reference. It's like a 40-year-old movie at this point.
It would be one of us making the Panic Room reference, I think.
Johnny Numb. Oh, so zombie Jared Leto tried to get to Hoffmeyer's house. We should go over there and watch RoboCop.
Is that a propane tank with a hose attached going with him? Whoa. Go Jared Leto.
And then I blow up other zombies.
Yeah. I think Forrest Whitaker would survive. He would be a good guy.
Oh yeah.
He's good deep down.
I'd hang out with the zombie Forrest Whitaker.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Just to listen. His voice would probably still sound good even as a zombie.
What do you think, zombie Forrest Whitaker? But it'd be like 60 years. They open it up and then I come out and they're like, wait, aren't you 100? Yeah, I mean, I've been pedaling, watching RoboCop.
Healthy living, smart living. Yeah.
You're 100.
I'm living my best life down in that panic room.
I'm just like, I have a guitar and I just unleashed the craziest guitar solo everyone's ever heard. Like, I use my time well down here. You guys want some Mentos? Oh man, we gotta get out of here. Johnny Numb, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at Johnny Numb. There are no H's in those Johnnies. I also write movie reviews over .com of the horror variety, and I occasionally write non-horror reviews over at the Screening Space. I hope to send some stuff Mark's way sometime this year. It's long overdue. And that's about it. Yeah.
Johnny Numb. I always want someone to say, like, I'm everywhere. I'm right behind you. The goal is to get that Movies, Films, and Flicks podcast everywhere. So maybe you look behind. Maybe go rate, review, and subscribe. Well, you ever hear of Player FM, Johnny?
Player FM?
We have a big following on Player FM, so hello to everybody who listens to us on Player FM. Give me a shout. Let me know who you are.
Oh, a bit of a product placement there.
Well, no, there's I never heard of Player FM before. And then, but yeah, we have a lot of people who listen to us on Player FM. So hello there, and thank you for listening. I love y'all. In a nice way, like not like in a devil all the time.
Delusional way.
Capital L-U. All right. So for me, Mark Hoffmeyer, for Johnny Numb, this is Movies, Films, and Flicks. We'll see you next week.